Welcome to episode 3 of the Weekly Take podcast. I'm your host, Dominick Joseph, and today we will be talking about the NFL Week 3 recap, going into NFL Week 4 picks, my personal power rankings, along with some fantasy shockers, and then to end the show, we will be talking some NBA headlines. And for that, I hope you guys enjoy. Let's do this. Moving into the Week 3 head cap, it just really showed that the NFL is truly something that you cannot predict. You know, the NFL has always been, it's any given Sunday, and that saying is completely true in the NFL. There has been so many upsets this week. For the biggest one going into this week was Buffalo beating Minnesota at home, and that was a huge win for Buffalo to go and snag that in Minnesota. We will get to that eventually, but first let's start with the Jets at the Browns, for the Browns winning their first game, and they haven't won a game since RG3 was starting at quarterback, and that's a couple years ago. Moving into that, the Jets just they had an opportunity to win this game, and they just couldn't do it. Moving into the Browns side of things, Baker Mayfield did step in for Tyrod Taylor and eventually got the win against the Jets, but the only expense was that Tyrod Taylor got hurt. And some people say it was only a matter of time before Baker Mayfield started anyway, but I don't know. I didn't really want to see Tyrod Taylor get injured and Baker step in. I don't know. I don't wish for anyone to get injured. I don't think anyone does. But the Browns, they unlocked those beer cases for all those Cleveland fans in the stadium. The locks got undone after that win. That's a big, huge win for Cleveland. I think that win was the only thing they really needed. Now that they got that win, they know what it tastes like again. They're hungry for more. That division, it's not the greatest division anymore. It never really is the powerhouse, but it usually has some pretty strong teams in it with Pittsburgh, Baltimore, and Cincinnati. Those three teams aren't, just going to fall over to Cleveland. Moving into the Saints-Falcons game, this was a super high-powered offensive game. You look at the New Orleans Saints and see how they were able to put together 43 points against these Atlanta Falcons. This Atlanta Falcons defense is kind of handicapped right now. They've lost two big players, but Drew Brees just showed that he's the better quarterback, and Matt Ryan couldn't really put up against that. This guy was pulling dad spin moves on people. He literally brought out the oldest trick in the book and spun move for a huge ending fourth quarter drive. It was embarrassing almost. This guy got spin moved by Drew Brees. I know he's an NFL quarterback, but that's a huge spin move to let go when a 40-year-old guy is running for a touchdown. You got to get that guy down. So moving into the Packers-Redskins game, this game I was really just shocked at the quarterback calls. I know I'm giving Green Bay some excuses. Washington did play a very good game. It just goes to show that if you have a pretty decent offense and an okay defense, you can play against the Packers. I mean, the Packers don't have a good defense at all. They have some key players with Clay Matthews and Clinton Dix and Shields on the end. But, looking at Aaron Rodgers, he's got Devontae Adams on offense, but, you slow that down. They got no running game. They're going to pass it. The quarterback rules, it just really, the flags lately are really getting a little bit, okay, like let them play. But we have advocated for player safety for so long. And now that it's happening, people are just so butthurt about it. So another big headline I had about this game is Coach McCarthy just looked like a literal tomato when he was mad. He always looks like a tomato, but you can't be getting that mad at the refs, man. You got to be professional, let your team see that. I know you're trying to show that you're passionate for it and you stick up for your guys, but you can't be getting that mad. Moving into the Colts Eagles game, I thought the Colts were going to get stomped, and I thought the Eagles would just run away with this win. They were home, and it just was really kind of embarrassing to see that Philly beat the Colts by 4. I know it's the NFL, and I know teams that are the bad teams. They're still in the NFL, but the Eagles should have beat these guys at least by a touchdown. I didn't really have much to say other than the offense looked kind of sloppy. I know Wentz just came back, but I'm expecting a little more. I guess that's me being a little greedy because they're the Super Bowl champions, and I expect them to whoop everyone. But everyone's got the Eagles number now. Moving into the Buffalo Vikings game, I couldn't believe my eyes when I saw. I checked. So I had I'm in a fantasy league, and I checked the score, and I see 27-6, I think the score was at the end, and I said, oh, they must have just it's a typo. but it was because I was like, there's no way Minnesota got whooped. And I thought they beat them so bad that they made the scores go bad, but the Bills ended up winning. I couldn't believe my eyes. The Vikings just, Kirk Cousins turned into Kurt Cousins. He was, he did not show up for the game. The Bills just looked actually really good. I know I hate on them a lot. Josh Allen had a huge hurdle. Their defense looked good. I don't know what to say. The Bills kind of showed some light, and that was really kind of cool to see because they have the players for that to happen, but they have to do what they did against Minnesota. If they play like that, the AFC East is going to be kind of a shit show. If New England kind of plays the way they're playing, the Jets kind of play like they're playing, and Miami's off to a really good start too, so that's going to be a really good division to see how things go. Moving into the Raiders-Dolphins game, you guys know what I think about the Raiders. The Raiders, I don't like that offense. That defense, getting rid of Khalil Mack was the, real dumb move there. But, moving into the Raiders aspect, they put up 20 points against these Dolphins. I know the Dolphins are 3-0. They've played some so-and-so teams that are really good. I give them the 3-0. They're not, I guess I just said they're really good, but they're not. Moving into the aspect that the Dolphins have a good offense. They have Ryan Tannehill, who's playing really good. Their outside receivers are doing good, and their running game's actually running good too. If those things are all clicking and your O-line isn't terrible, that's a recipe for a good, some touchdowns. And if your defense can get a couple turnovers, that's a win. They won 28-20 in Miami for their fans, and that was a good win for them. But I don't really have anything else to say other than that was just, they should have won that game. Oakland is not the powerhouse Oakland our parents once knew in the 90s. Moving into the Broncos-Ravens game, I was really impressed with the Ravens. More disappointed in the Broncos. They put on a good show against Seattle. They look kind of sloppy, and the penalties were not helping them. I watched majority of that game, and they just looked like they were getting penalized a lot. Von Miller was doing everything he could, but the defensive line couldn't get to Flacco as much as they wanted to. They made a couple big plays, but, their defense was just not contending against John Brown, Michael Crabtree, Alex Collins, Joe Flacco, Willie Snead. That's a pretty good offense when they're all on the same page. I know I'm a little biased, but, I could see that their offense is something to be kind of reckoned with in the AFC North this year. Even in the AFC, I could see potential wild card in both these teams if they get their things together. The lines on both teams are pretty good. Philip Lindsay did get ejected from the game, and that was kind of funny to see. But, that's just those two teams can represent the wild card if they play their cards right. Moving into the Bengals-Panthers game, I didn't really watch much of this, but I did see that Cam Newton kind of went off. He's now the leading rusher in rushing touchdowns as QB. That's pretty awesome. McCaffrey had a monster game. The Bengals just, they're the Bengals. They either show up and they're really good like they did against Baltimore, or you get the mediocre, or you get the really bad. I guess they have three things. The Bengals are either really good, they're either really bad, or they're like mediocre. I guess those are all three outcomes you could really be. I guess can't really be much more. But that's really who the Bengals were. They just kind of let the Panthers stomp over them. They look kind of unmotivated at the end of the game. The Panthers won that game. That was a pretty good win. Giants at Texans. I picked the Texans to win last week, and I look dumb now because, Odell went off, Eli was clicking, their line was clicking, Saquon was looking to the outside run, and he was getting to the outside run. That offense showed some light. Their defense, they were just totally just on the same page, and, the Texans almost climbed back. Deshaun Watson actually was kind of being Deshaun Watson for once. He wasn't seeing ghosts out there. J.J. Watt did his part on defense, but their secondary was getting torn up. I don't really expect anyone to really put up with that offense in New York when they're on the same page. If Eli's throwing it good, Odell's running routes, Sterling Shepard's running route, Ingram's running routes, and they have Saquon, you got to worry about that many people on offense. Someone's going to get open. I think Ingram did get hurt this game, and that's a shame, but I think he'll be back. I don't think it's longer than 4 weeks. Moving into the Titans-Jaguars game, this was the most Titan-Jaguars game I've ever seen in my life. 9-6, and the Titans ended up winning. Brian Arakpo turned back he must have dipped in the fountain of youth at halftime or something. This guy was looking phenomenal. I guess he just has the Jacksonville Jaguars number. He knows what to be against these guys. They're nothing really too special. I know the Jags, looked really good against New England. We're all, oh my God, they're going to be AFC Championship, blah, 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 blah. But, they do show some, vulnerability when they play against teams that know their number, like the Titans do. It's a division game. I don't think Jaguar fans should be too worried. Some good teams let, teams like this slide through and get a win every once in a while. They don't let them, obviously, but, it happens. Moving into the Chiefs 49ers game, the Chiefs, the Chiefs just kind of did what the Chiefs do. They're high-powered offense now with Patrick Mahomes, Tyreek Hill, Sammy Watkins, Kareem Hunt, Travis Kelce. That's another offense that you're like, oh, they're going to score. So you're going to have to put up with these guys. San Francisco lost Jimmy G this game. That's terrible for them. They lost Jerick McKinnon as well, earlier this year. I guess they got to tank and get Nick Bosa. That's really probably what they're looking for. They get Nick Bosa, Reuben Foster. That's not a bad matchup, San Francisco. You tank, get Nick Bosa, Reuben Foster, maybe Patrick Willis comes out of retirement, Navarro Bowman comes back, maybe even Ahmad Brooks. Moving back into the Chargers game, the Chargers and Rams game, the Battle of LA. I think this was one of those games that momentum really took a big part of it. That blocked punt for the touchdown really kind of gave that Rams that, like, oh yeah, we're going to win this game. And I feel like after that happened, the Chargers kind of put their heads down and they couldn't really get themselves back in the game. They were climbing back there for a second. I really thought they were going to win. I did pick the Chargers to win this game as an upset, but, you can't pick against – no, I did pick the Rams, but, the Rams are a tough team. It's hard to pick against them. And, it's the Rams. It's LA. How am I supposed to phrase this? The Rams are LA's team right now. Sorry, LA Chargers. You should have stayed in San Diego. Cowboys in Seattle. This game I had a couple takeaways. Another takeaway is Dak Prescott can't throw more than 10 yards. I know he did it last week, but against the Giants, he couldn't do it against Earl Thomas. Earl Thomas had 2 interceptions. Should have paid the guy, you guys. Dallas should not have been stingy and just gave them some first rounders and a second rounder for Earl Thomas. He obviously showed that he can win you games single-handedly. And if Dallas would have had Earl Thomas, they could have won that game. As for Seattle, they got the run game going. Their offense looked good. Their line was blocking. Russell Wilson was, making good plays, not just outside the pocket, in the pocket. I don't know. Rashad Penny goes in and fumbles. That was a big, we used a first-round draft pick on him, and why didn't we just use Chris Carson and get someone that the Seahawks needed rather than another running back? Maybe if they would have traded Earl away, they would have had a couple more. But you know what? Earl Thomas needs to stay in Seattle. He needs to realize that they just need to pay him already. He needs to put his head down, just do what he's doing because he's doing good, man. Moving into the Bears-Cardinals game, this is one of those games where I was kind of upset that it was an afternoon game because it was boring. This definitely could have been a morning game that I didn't even really care about and just looked at the highlights. The Bears and Cardinals game, I can't take anything away other than the Cardinals are bad and the Bears barely squeaked this out. The Cardinals started off strong in the beginning and they just let them come back and win. They didn't. I don't know. They looked like they had that momentum and then it just slipped away. When you gotta push it down the throat in the NFL. Moving on to the Patriots-Lions game, some takeaways I have from this is that the Patriots just, they showed a little bit of vulnerability. I mean, I'm not too worried about this loss because, they always do this every year. They lose to, someone like the Bills or Miami. This year it's the Lions, and, everyone starts freaking out. And then you start seeing who the real fans are, and then they go on, an 8-game win streak. Then everyone's back on their bandwagon. Kerryon Johnson, that's a huge takeaway. If you could get someone to run a little bit and help Matt Stafford out and get those play actions going, that will win you games, and that's what they did. Matt Patricia said, you know what, let's run a little bit. Let's catch New England off sides, get them a couple times, run it up the gut, get an easy 8 yards. That's an easy first down. That was really smart on the Lions' part. They looked really good on offense when they get the running going. But when you're so one-dimensional and you don't have a guy like Aaron Rodgers, Drew Brees, even Tom Brady, when they know you're going to throw it 40 times and they're going to be prepared for it, you're going to lose most of those games. Moving into the Steelers-Buccaneers game, this game was easily the Bucs. One play for, that I could say is that that punt return. That would have happened. The Bucs looked pretty good, but, Fitzpatrick threw 3 interceptions. And, as close as they were, and the refs did this, if he wouldn't have thrown maybe one of those interceptions, maybe you guys would have won too. So don't really blame everything on the refs. I understand there was some bad calls, but, you can't throw 3 picks and win. If you throw 3 picks, you better just accept that you're probably going to lose in the NFL. So moving into the Week 4 aspect, I'm going to do some picks, and then we're going to go through why I picked them. To start off for Thursday night, I have the Vikings at the Rams, and the pick I have to go with is the Rams. They're too tough to choose against. Like, unless I'm really trying to make some money or something, this team is, you bet on the Rams every week. I don't really see them losing to a game like a team like Buffalo, like Minnesota did. That did show some light. I don't really want to pick Minnesota after showing that they can lose to Buffalo like that. And Buffalo is not who the LA Rams are. So I'm going with the Rams this game. The next game we got on our list is the Jets at Jaguars. This is almost kind of a gimme. I'm going Jacksonville. They're home. They just lost to Tennessee. That was kind of embarrassing. They're going to want to kind of, take it out on someone, and I think the Jets are going to get that low. They're going to get they're going to come at us full speed. But, the Jets need this win just as much as they do. So the Jags, I got to go with. Moving into the Dolphins-Patriots game, I got to go Patriots. They're also hungry for a win. I understand Miami's 3-0, but they're in Foxborough. They just lost to Detroit. Kind of embarrassing on Sunday night. I say Tom Brady gets the offense going, and they beat the 3-0 Dolphins. Moving into the Eagles-Titans, I got to go Eagles. The Eagles are looking really, they're starting to pick up that offense. I know they played the Colts, and I kind of just bagged on them, but I think they win this game against the Titans. The Titans are kind of, their quarterback situation, someone's injured, someone's not injured. They got Blaine Gabbert, Mariota. It's kind of, it's kind of a shit show going on there. Texans at Colts, divisional game. I understand that. But I got to go Texans. I don't think the Colts are going to hold off DeAndre Hopkins, Will Fuller, Lamar Miller, Deshaun Watson. If those four get some stuff going, that defense gets a couple sacks early in the ground, possibly a couple fumbles, I think the Texans run away with this one. Bills at Packers. As much as I want to hope the Bills are going to be that same team they were last year or last game, I don't think they're going to be. I think they're going to be maybe week 1 Bills against the Packers. Maybe not. They could be someone different, but Green Bay's at home. They just lost to Washington kind of embarrassingly. Some calls got in their way. I say the Packers win this at Lambeau. Moving into the Lions at Cowboys, I got to go Cowboys. I know the Lions just beat New England, but I've been drinking the undisputed Kool-Aid, as some people might say, and Skip Bayless is kind of hitting on me here. I got to go Dallas Cowboys against these Lions. I just think, they're going to get the offense going and beat Detroit. I think some people are going to pick Detroit in my pick league, so I got to go Dallas. Buccaneers at Bears, I'm going to go Bucks. I really like the Bears. I just don't like Mitchell Trubisky, and I feel like he's just enough to lose them this game. Maybe he goes for 4 touchdowns and I look dumb, but, I'd rather have Mitchell Trubisky have 4 touchdowns instead of, their running back, or, I'll have, if we'll let Mitchell Trubisky score 4 touchdowns, but we're not letting Jordan Howard. So I don't think Jordan Howard's going to score 4. They're going to make Mitchell Trubisky make some tough throws. So I'm going Bucks because I don't really like those chances. Moving into the Bengals at Atlanta, I got to go Atlanta. After what they showed that they can put up against New Orleans, I think they're going to do that again against this Bengals defense. I know they got Geno Atkins and they got some really good players on the outside, but I really think Atlanta's going to be a little too much for Cincinnati. Cincinnati's pretty good, and a lot of people are, really excited that the Bengals are good again. But it is week 4, and I think Atlanta kind of puts their foot down and says, hey, we're an NFC representer. We got to win this game. And I understand Cincinnati's on the upper end of the AFC North right now, but I don't think they're enough for the Falcons, so I'm going Atlanta. Seahawks at Arizona, on the other hand, I cannot even think about going with Arizona. That would just be probably the dumbest pick. I got to go Seattle. I do not have any confidence in Arizona. I understand Josh Rosen's starting this week. Maybe he gets a couple touchdowns, but, Seattle looked really good against Dallas, and Arizona's offense is nowhere near that offense. I know Dak Prescott is, not so much greater than Josh Rosen, and David Johnson isn't much better, or if not worse than Ezekiel Elliott. But I don't know. I just think Dallas kind of has Seattle's number better than Arizona does. I know they're in the same division, but I think maybe Arizona makes it a good first quarter. That's all I'm really saying. Maybe Arizona makes it a good first quarter and then just gets 40 points blown out. I say Earl has another 2-interception game. Bobby Wagner has 1. I think, the Seahawks are going to have a heyday on Arizona this week. Moving into Browns at Raiders, I got to go Browns. I can't even pick the Raiders. I don't like picking the Raiders ever. They usually lose every week. I want them to win, or every week I want them to lose, they win. So maybe they win just because I'm not picking them, but I got to go Cleveland this week. Cleveland showed some real light. They've played some pretty tough games, and they shouldn't just have one win. They should have won a couple weeks back. They've always been in the game. A couple kicks, a couple penalty calls. They could be possibly 3 wins, possibly 2 wins. So I got to go Cleveland. I don't think Raiders can hold them off. Moving into the New Orleans Saints at the Giants, I got to go Saints because they just pounced on Atlanta. They put on a lot of points, and I don't think the Giants' defense is as good as Atlanta's is. Drew Brees is probably going to have a heyday on that secondary for dang sure. The Giants could make it a game if their offenses keeps up with them. It's going to be a high-scoring game. Maybe Odell has 3 touchdowns kind of game, and that keeps them in it. But unless that's happening and their offense isn't really firing off to all 4 cylinders, then I don't know if that's going to happen. So I got to go Saints because I like their chances. I know they're in New York, but I still like that slight edge with New Orleans. 49ers at Chargers. I can't pick the 49ers without Jimmy G or Jerick McKinnon. I know he hasn't been, a factor in any games, but LA against them, it's kind of like a no-brainer. I got to go LAC after getting embarrassed against the Rams. It's just kind of, I got to go the Chargers. For Sunday night, this is an exciting game. Ravens at Steelers rivalry game in the AFC North. I like the Ravens' chances this week, and I do think they're going to go win in Heinz Field. And here is why. I think the offense is going to put on a show against this defense, but there is a big but. I think that Pittsburgh is going to be a really hard win. I think, it's 70-30 in Pittsburgh's favor, but I think that 30% chance is going to happen. The offense is a new offense Pittsburgh hasn't seen yet. Obviously, they haven't played. They got tape to see, but I don't think they're going to, fully read this offense like they've been able to. It's a totally different system. Our defense is going to be on the same page again. That defense is going to make some big plays. It's going to be a good game. It's going to be a low-scoring game, probably not more than 30. I just like Baltimore's chances. I got to go Baltimore. Chiefs at Broncos. I got to go Chiefs. The Chiefs are undefeated. Patrick Mahomes is, sadly being really good. I say sadly because he's someone I didn't think that would be good, and I doubted him, and now I'm looking ridiculous for doubting him when I shouldn't have. That offense is literally built perfect for him. He sat there for a year. It was almost like that's what these head coaches need to do. If they're listening, you let your starting quarterback sit for a year, learn the offense, and then you throw him into the Wolves. You don't throw him into the Wolves right off the bat. Do you see Wolves throwing in their Cubs right into the Wild as soon as they're ready? As soon as they're walking? No, they at least let them get a couple days. Those couple days are years in this situation. Aaron Rodgers sat for 3 years, 3-4 years. If you put your quarterback in that situation where they get to learn, they get to work out, they get to eat right, they get to be in the NFL, they're going to perform, and Patrick Mahomes is truly showing that. So I think the Chiefs are going to win this game. Denver has a really good defense, could make it a good game because it's an AFC West divisional matchup, but I think the Chiefs go 4-0. I think they could be just them and the Rams, the only undefeated teams going into Week 5. I think Miami loses this week. Moving into the third part of the show, I just want to talk about my 32-team power rankings. This is going to be kind of a longer one, so stick with me. So starting at number 32, I got the Arizona Cardinals. That kind of goes without saying. I think the Cardinals are the worst team in the league right now. That offense, even with David Johnson, I still think they're at the bottom. Moving into 31, I got Oakland. The Oakland Raiders are at my 31 spot. Moving into 30, I got the Indianapolis Colts. I just don't like the Colts that much, and I got to put them at 29. San Francisco 49ers, I got at 29. After losing Jimmy G, I think they're only going to go down. I'm sorry, 49er fans, but, I don't think you're better than half the teams. Obviously, more than half these teams. Houston is at number 28. I really like Houston, but I don't think that they're that good this year. They're stalling a lot, and then it's just they can't get things going. I got Detroit at number 27, and before you guys get all, well, we beat New England, and blah, blah, yeah, you also lost to the Jets by 30. So that kind of balances you out, and I put you down low. So I don't want to hear, we beat the Patriots. Okay, well, I just said it. So moving into the Jets game, I have the Jets at number 26. I didn't mean to say Jets game, but the Jets are at number 26 for me. I just, they're not too good. They're not too bad. They're not horrible, and they're not, in the middle. So they're like lower, upper, lower, I guess you could say. Then I got Buffalo. The reason I would have Buffalo way lower if they wouldn't have beat Minnesota, that game was enough to persuade me that they are pretty good when they want to be and if they can be. Moving into the 23rd spot, I have the Dallas Cowboys, and right above them, I have the Giants at 22. The reason I put Giants above them is because I think the offense could click easier than them. I think it takes like 4 quarters for Dallas to get their stuff going. So that's why I have Dallas at 23 and the Giants at 22. Right above them at 21, I got the Tennessee Titans. The Tennessee Titans, were really good. They made the playoffs last year, and I think they have potential. But this year they are not showing any of that. They have good constant pressure on the defense. Mariota, balls out when he wants the ball out. But if those things don't happen every time, like the thing is that separates them from the other teams is when they want to run it, they can run it. When they want to pass it, they can pass it. These guys don't know. They kind of go with what they could get from the defense, and the better teams go and get it. Like you know what I mean? Moving into the Cleveland Browns, I got them at 20. They would be also lower, but I had to kind of put them upper this time in the 20th spot. I think that win against the Jets last week was a good win. I think that they could have won a couple more games. Both those other games they could have won. So a lot of people have the Browns lower, but I have to put them in the 20th spot. Right above them, I have the Redskins. After the Redskins beat Green Bay, I had them even lower. I move these around a little bit week by week. But this week I wanted to show what how I go through it and what I do. So I have Washington Redskins at 19. Right above them, I have the Seattle Seahawks at 18. The Seahawks, I wanted to put them above Denver and Chicago, but Denver and Chicago both beat them. So I kind of use like a transitive somewhat property. I just don't think, if they were to do a rematch, I don't know if they'd beat them. So Seattle has a good upside. I think they could be at the 14th, 13th spot if they play well like they did against Dallas every game. If they play like that again, I could move them like 3 spots because that, if we get a glimpse of the old Seattle, I think they could be way higher on this list. Right above them, I got Denver at the 17th spot and Chicago at the 16th spot. Denver, I have at the 17th spot. The loss against Baltimore kind of showed that they can be bad. Case Keenum, it's Case Keenum. Like, you could have Vikings almost to the playoffs or, getting to the playoffs, Case Keenum, or you can get Case Keenum, or in my case, I'm going to call him Keenum Case, and then right above them, I got Chicago. I said this earlier in the podcast. I just don't really like Mitchell Trubisky, and that's why I have the Bears at 16. Right above the Bears, I got Green Bay. Green Bay beat Chicago, so I had to put them right above them. I still have them above the Redskins just because I think Aaron Rodgers is just enough to make your team that good. I know he didn't really do much against Washington, but I think the Packers deserve to be the 15th spot. Right above them, I got Pittsburgh at 14. I think the Pittsburgh Steelers, have really good upside if their locker room's in straight. I know I'm not in the locker room, and I know people use that I was in the locker room, blah, blah, blah. But the Pittsburgh Steelers, I think, do deserve that spot. They are a good team on offense when they have everything going. Juju Smith-Schuster, James Conner, that line isn't bad. Big Ben can get the ball to AB. That defense has T.J. Watt. I don't really know who else to say. I know I should probably know more Pittsburgh Steelers, but I really don't pay attention to them. But he's leaped off my screen a couple times. I think he's gotten some stuff done. Right above them, I have New England at the 13th spot. That lost to Detroit. I would have these guys like 7th spot. I know a lot of people don't like New England, but they are New England Patriots, and they've been good for the past 12 years. So, you always got to kind of respect that. But I have them at the 13th spot, and right above them, I have Baltimore, who just beat Denver, and they beat Buffalo in week 1, but they did lose to Cincinnati, and I think Cincinnati is a really good team this year. That offense is really good. There's a lot of good offenses in the league this year, now that I kind of think about it. Right above Baltimore, I have Atlanta. Atlanta played a really good game against New Orleans. They came up a little short against Drew Brees. and the dad move, spin move. Um, right above them, I got Minnesota. Minnesota, I had like in the 5th spot last week until they go and lose to Buffalo, so I moved them. They probably took the biggest leap. Um, Buffalo. I know I didn't move Buffalo up that much. It's just because I don't really think they're going to maintain that way of play. I don't think Minnesota is going to do this every week. I think Kirk Cousins is going to get his stuff together, and the offense is going to get going again. Right above them, I have Jacksonville. Tennessee did play a really good game against them, but it was sloppy, and anyone kind of could have won that game. So I didn't really like, oh man, Tennessee won that game. It was more like Jacksonville just didn't punch it through. Moving into the 8th spot, I got Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay, that was a hard loss against Pittsburgh, but I still have them above them just because they've played so well. And I think Tampa Bay does deserve the 8th spot, even though they're 2-1. I think they're gonna keep. That defense is good. That offense is still firing. They're kind of figuring themselves out, and I still like that they could be really good. Right above Tampa Bay, at the 7th spot, I got Cincinnati at the 7th. Cincinnati's really good. I think they played a really good Carolina team. They kind of used everything to Carolina's disadvantages. They ran it right up the middle on them, right to the outside, and then they threw it. And honestly, that looked like it was just enough to beat them. But yeah, Cincinnati's no longer undefeated, and Carolina is now on top of them in the power rankings. But right before I get to Carolina, I have the Philadelphia Eagles at the spot number 6, right below Carolina. The reason I put Philly below Carolina is because they didn't really have too big of convincing wins this past 2 weeks. They could have really beat on the Colts, and I forgot who they played the week before that. But I know it wasn't by a long shot. I get there getting back into the Eagles play. They got Carson Wentz back, and they have some injuries. But I got to put Carolina above them at the 5 spot because Cam Newton's playing phenomenal. Christian McCaffrey is actually playing. Their defense has always been kind of really good since Josh Norman left, actually. And when Josh Norman was there, those 3 years he was there, they were really good. And I think they kind of they found themselves in the defensive side of the ball. Moving into that, I have to put Miami at the 4 spot because they're 3-0, and you got to kind of respect that. So I got them at number 4. Ryan Tannehill's balling out. I know as soon as the lights shine bright on Miami, they're probably going to choke. So let's enjoy the 3-0 Miami Dolphins as we can. They could very well just choke, but I could be a hater, and I hope they prove me wrong. Moving into the 3rd spot, I got New Orleans Saints. I think that Saints win against the Falcons was phenomenal. I really liked that offense, and they just didn't stop. As soon as they thought it was over, they just kept going. I really liked that. Drew Brees kept them going. I really liked that. Moving to the 2 spot, I got Kansas City. I can't put them against Los Angeles Rams because I really like the run game in LA. Therefore, I got Kansas City at the 2 spot and the Los Angeles Rams at the 1 spot. I just think the Rams are the team to beat this year. Kansas City's at 2 just because, that defense has a little bit of holes. They've let some teams score on them. The Rams, on the other hand, I think are the best team in the NFL right now. So I got Kansas City, the Chiefs at the 2 spot because I just don't think they'd beat LA if they played. I also do that. The teams that are next to each other, if the team's on top of them, I usually pick the team that would win again in a head-to-head matchup, and I put them on top. So I think LA would win that game. Moving into the next segment of the show, I want to talk about the fantasy shockers of the week. I only have 4 this week, and 2 are on the same team. The first one is Calvin Ridley. I had no idea that Calvin Ridley would have more points than Julio Jones in a team that I think number 11 is the main guy in Atlanta. This guy showed up. I mean, I get they're on Julio. That's a very big – well, that's probably why. But Calvin Ridley's balling out. I really like that. He had 33 points, 3 touchdowns, and 146 yards. That's a lot of points in a standard league. So that's a really big shocker to me. Jordy Nelson kind of reminded me of the Green Bay days. He had 23 points, 173 yards, and a touchdown. And he had 160 of those in the first quarter or the first half. And that was really kind of shocking to me. So Jordy Nelson's my next one. And then I have 2 Miami wide receivers, Albert Wilson and Jakeem Grant, with 19.48 points and 19 points. That's amazing. For them to put 2 19-point games in an offense such as Miami, I think that's really kind of shocking to me. I didn't think, let alone after Devontae Parker's there, and they have Jarvis Landry, who just left to Cleveland. I didn't think anyone would be kind of stepping up to that role quite yet. So I think Jakeem Grant and Albert Wilson are really shockers. So to wrap it up, I got Calvin Ridley, Jordy Nelson, Albert Wilson, and Jakeem Grant. I know I didn't add a running back or a quarterback. It's just because I thought these guys were really shocking. If I were to throw in a running back, I'd probably throw in AP because he had 24 points and it's AP. I know 24 points 5 years ago would have been like, oh, that's duh. I drafted him in first. But AP, that's pretty crazy. So I guess AP is as long he's also in the fantasy shockers. But now moving into the NBA segment of the show, it's just I want to talk about a couple of things that are kind of stood out to me in the NBA world. Jimmy Butler wants out of Minnesota, and do you blame the guy? This I kind of talked about this last week too. He now just said he wants to go to Miami, and Miami. It seems to me like he really just wants to get closer to Dwayne Wade's girlfriend. A lot of people talked about that a couple months ago, actually, when he was commenting on Dwayne Wade's wife's Instagram, and Dwayne Wade had to step in, and maybe he's trying to get closer to her. I don't know, but it's funny that he wants to go to Miami. In an era where a lot of people like to go to super teams and stuff. I was really surprised to see that he wanted to go to the Heat. Maybe if he does go there, he fills in for Wade's shoes because this is Wade's last dance this year. So maybe Jimmy Butler wants to be the new guy in Miami. I don't blame him. Minnesota has the Mall of America and nothing else. So moving into the Rondo over Lonzo part, this is something I wasn't too surprised about that people are making too big of a fuss about. Rondo going to LA, everyone kind of knew he was going to start, but then there's the Lonzo fans who think, Lonzo should be starting, and I think Rondo's going to, he's played against LeBron for many years. He's got a lot of chemistry. He's a pass-first kind of point guard. I think that's what LeBron likes. If LeBron could play off the ball, let Rondo bring up the ball, I think that would be really good for the Los Angeles Lakers. Moving into Gordon Hayward being back for the Celtics, I think that's going to be a big move for them. They didn't have him last year or Kyrie in the last part of the season. To have both those two back for him to play in the preseason game, I think that's going to be fantastic for that organization. As much as a lot of people don't like to see Boston teams succeed, I think Boston's going to be another team to be reckoned with. They could probably go to the finals this year if Toronto and Kawhi don't get in the way, or Joel Embiid get in the way. Those are really the three powerhouse teams I see coming out of the East this year. And then another thing I wanted to kind of close the thing with is how Kawhi Leonard's laugh is all over the media. I just don't, this guy opens up, he goes to Toronto, wants a clean slate, laughs, and gets roasted by the entire internet. Maybe that's why he doesn't like to talk, but who knows? That guy probably don't even own an iPhone. He probably has a Motorola Razr. So, but still, I just, the NBA talks about all this mental health stuff, and then, someone laughs and they make fun of him. I don't really get the thing that's going there. But I just want to say thank you guys for listening to this podcast, and I hope everyone else has a good one.